Questions are mounting over security protocols at the White House Correspondents' Dinner after last night's attack. New reporting from our colleague Carol Leonnig reveals 3 specific issues with the evening's security: the checkpoint, the evacuation, and the venue itself. And both former and current law enforcement officials tell MS Now this has exposed worrisome vulnerabilities in the Secret Service's protection bubble around the president. Now we're hearing from a journalist who says he was staying in the room right next to the suspect at the Washington Hilton. Hugh Doherty, executive editor of Daily Beast, has a first-hand account out today titled "I Slept Next Door to the Assassin in Hilton Room 10235. This is a security fiasco." Quote, "How on earth could someone with a disassembled long gun check into a room at a hotel where the president was going to speak? I can answer that. Nobody even looked at my luggage on Friday afternoon. Worse, my colleague arrived on Saturday at 5 p.m. Nobody looked at his luggage either. No magnometers, no hand checks, no ID checks, nothing." And Hugh joins us now. So walk us through the timeline of when you realized who your next door neighbor was at the Washington Hilton.
Elise, thank you for having me. It was a very strange night for everybody that was involved, as you know. I'm sure everybody here has been covering all day, quite rightly. And I was in the ballroom along with, I think, some of you and certainly many of your colleagues. And eventually we got out, and about 2 hours later, I decided that I had to go upstairs to get the charger for my phone because I was running out of charge. And when I got upstairs, a Hilton security man was standing just beside my door in the corridor, and 3 or 4 uniformed officers, and said, "Can you come back in maybe 20 minutes? There's, just for your own protection." And I thought, that's a bit odd. Have they got a protectee in there? Is there somebody in the next room that they've put in there for their safety and they don't want me there? And it wasn't that urgent, so I said, well, sure. I just wanted to get my phone charger and I'll come back. I went downstairs. There was a lot to cover that night, as we all know, and it was actually an hour later when I went up again. And by this point, far more law enforcement, and I spoke to the Hilton security person again and said, can I get in my room? And thinking, this does not look like I'm getting in my room. And he said, I can't really tell you, sir. And I said, what exactly is going on? And he said, I'm sorry, sir, I just can't tell you. And the detective turned to me and said, when did you check in? And I said, well, yesterday. And he said, we're waiting for a judge. And obviously at that moment I realised if you're waiting for a judge, by implication, you're waiting for a warrant. Yes. And he said, and this will be an FBI crime scene. Mm. So at that point, there were already suggestions from sources. I think certainly one of my colleagues at the Daily Beast had this suggestion. I think everybody had that suggestion by this time, 3 hours after the shooting, that the shooter may have been a guest at the hotel. And this confirmed that this was exactly the case.
So I guess the most immediate question I have for you is, in the time that you were there from Friday until the time you checked out, I assume this morning, up until the event yesterday, did you see anyone? Did you hear anything next door?
I did not. I didn't see him. I didn't hear him. Apparently he was a very quiet neighbour, frankly. Yeah. But I was certainly surprised that I was being asked that. And when I started speaking to the detective, I said, the only thing I can tell you is when the housekeeping was in my room, because I happened to have walked in on Saturday morning when the housekeeping was in the room, and they said, oh, that's very helpful. Turned to the Hilton, their guy from Hilton, and said, can we get the cleaning logs? So it seemed like there was a bit of catch-up being played. Mm. And when I went back downstairs, I went outside, I made a phone call, and a bomb squad walked past me. And I thought, 3 hours later, there's a bomb squad, and that was in the room next door. So
it seems odd.
It does seem odd.
That
yes.
3 hours passed from the time that I guess this shooting happened, and the bomb squad came. I don't know what the usual lag time is, but
I don't know either. And what I should say is, and I think it's important that we're focusing on security. I think all of us who were there felt immense gratitude to the courage of those officers and agents who tackled this shooter.
Absolutely.
And I could not speak more highly of them. I could not speak more highly of the hotel staff. And I know I spoke to people from loads of colleagues from other outlets and networks, and we all said the same thing. I think the question here more is about the planning and the preparation that went on.
You bring up a good point, because usually you think of like when there's a gunman at a mass shooting event or something and they go search their car, they usually kind of clear the area around the car until they get a bomb squad in. But it seemed that you were still within the hotel within an hour, to say the least, within the hour since the ballroom was evacuated. So clearly they had not made the decision to evacuate the entire hotel.
Right, and that was very clear that they were not evacuating. It took a long time to evacuate the ballroom itself.
So I guess the real question is, like, when did they find out that he was a guest of the hotel, and then how long did they decide or sit on the information that they're going to bring in a bomb squad to search his room to make sure that there was no additional threat? And those, I think, are very valid questions for investigators. But talk to us a little bit about the 24 hours or so walking in and out of the hotel. I mean, I'm sure you went out, maybe went for a walk, went to go get a coffee, came back. At any point, did anybody search your bags? I mean, you mentioned that a little bit, but...
Exactly. I did all those things, and no, at no point did anybody search my bags. The only ID check that I ever had to get in was when I checked in, when you hand over, passport, driving license, credit card. So no, there was never any searches. There were never any use of magnetometers.
Did that surprise you? Were you anticipating?
Have you covered this event before?
Yeah, this was my 5th time.
Oh, okay.
But this was also the first time that I was going when there was a president. I'd been at a succession of president-free, for obvious well-known reasons, president-free White House Correspondents' Association's dinners, and I was surprised. And I was not the only person to be surprised that the security seemed exactly the same as when we'd previously been. My colleagues at the Daily Beast, almost all of them in our table, had been at these before and said, well, this is the same security as the last time that they were there without a president. And I don't know about the Biden situation, but certainly this was the same as a president-free event.
Did you, and the reason why I'm asking this is because I just want to get a sense of the security, did you go to any of the pre-parties that were in the hotel?
Yes.
And there was no security from the moment you walked out of your room until the moment you actually got into the party with other journalists and maybe some high-profile guests?
Well, there was no visible presence of security, or no enhanced security to get into...
no magnometers,
no magnometers.
No
the only
searching,
magnometers are to get into...
the ballroom.
The terrace above the ballroom, where there is an early pre-drinks reception. So there were parties held by other outlets and networks, CBS, ABC.
Incredible.
I went off and went to party off the building and came back in. And to get back in, all I had to do was show my ticket. And in fact, one of my colleagues was running late, and I had her ticket. And she phoned me and said, if you text me a picture of the ticket, that will do. They will accept that. And that allowed her to get as far as the magnetometers.
Wow.
So it seems to me to raise very serious questions.
That's incredible.
Yeah.
Okay.
Hugh Doherty, thanks so much for taking the time to talk with us.
Thank you for having me.
We're glad you're safe and that everybody else is safe.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me. And again, I just think I should say an immense vote of gratitude to the security staff, the agents and the hotel staff.
Yes, absolutely.
Thank you.
Thanks for having me.